Hey, what's up guys, it's TJ here, back with another little camera talk, just a little discussion about the Sony Rx100 Mark IV. This camera I've grown to love, I like it, but I'm not sure if I would purchase this camera a second time around. Now this is a beast camera, seriously. I mean, this thing is a beast. Sony has definitely taken over the pocket camera series or market with this series right here, and it's definitely top of the line, top of its class, valedictorian of the pocket cameras. They put so much in this small package. Now it's a $1,000 package. You can probably get it cheaper now. I'll have that linked in the description box below. Now I fell in love with this camera because of the way it was advertised. I loved the way they advertised it. They really looked like they were targeting the filmmakers, not necessarily the vloggers, but the people who are looking to do a little bit more with their footage, maybe post-processing and things like that. Now the build quality of this thing is pretty good. Now I'm pretty tough on my cameras, and this thing has dropped a few times. It took the blows, took the punches. It's back on its feet. I had a couple of problems with the lens because of the mechanics and these lenses that kind of pancake. There's a whole bunch of little mechanical issues that you can have if you do drop this camera on this lens, but that's something typical for all pocket cameras. Take care of your pocket cameras, guys. Don't drop it. It's like an iPhone. You gotta be gentle with it. It doesn't feel cheap or anything like that. It's nice and solid, has a good weight to it. And I like the feel and the kind of the ergonomics of it. You don't want to feel like the buttons are too small or anything like that, but they are kind of small when it gets to the recording buttons and the menu buttons. They are kind of small. Now the quality of this camera outputs is nothing short of amazing. I mean, it's very crispy, very clean shots. The sharpness is top notch. It's nice and flat, but it's very sharp, and you can definitely see the detail in this image. Because it's flat and because it's that cine style look, you don't have an issue with those tricky lighting situations where you're backlit or anything like that. And the sensor in this camera is really good in low light situations, so it really performs well in low light. Now putting the footage from the Sony Rx100 next to the G7X, it may not look like the Rx100 is the sharpest image because the G7X has all the contrast, has all the poppiness. Now this camera is more suited for those, like I said, who are trying to do a little bit more with their work, where the poppiness and the contrast and a lot of stuff that makes the G7X look sharper, that footage is not really great for post-processing like the footage you'll get from the Sony Rx100. So if you're looking to do color grading, if you're looking to do some type of post-processing with your image, and you want to make sure you have a flat image, you want to make sure you have an image that can be color graded and you can add your own style to it. Now those are some of the highlights of the Rx100, and it's a really great camera, guys. It's a really great camera, but there are some things about it that I do not like about it. But those are the things that really sold me on this camera. I was looking for a nice camera that could do all the things my DSLR could do. It has 4K, it has slow motion, it has a flat cine style image that is very attractive in my opinion. Those are the things that sold me. Those are the things that made me want to buy this camera. But my question is, should the guys at Sony be praised for a camera that is only halfway capable of doing the things that it says it should? Now, a couple of things about this camera. To shoot in 4K, you need a specific SD card to do so. If you don't have that specific SD card, it won't allow you to shoot in 4K. It'll only allow you to shoot in 1080p or less. This is the card that you will need for this camera, and I'll have that linked in the description box below so you know exactly what card you need for the Sony Rx100. This camera is 4K capable, but only for a few minutes. I mean, you only have a few minutes of shoot time in 4K before this thing overheats, and it had serious overheating issues. So you could probably get 5 minutes, 4 minutes, or maybe even 3 minutes of recording time in 4K. So if I'm filming a video like this, usually a 6-minute video takes longer than 6 minutes to record. It would literally have you waiting for it to cool down until you can continue to record. And that's a problem, that's an issue with me. So if it overheats and it shuts down when shooting in 4K, is it really capable of shooting 4K footage? I mean, if I was editing on my computer and I was editing 4K footage and my computer froze after 2 minutes of editing on that computer, I would say it's not capable of editing 4K footage. That's just me. So if you want to shoot 4K footage, but just in short bursts, like less than 3 minutes at a time, this is great for you. But I would not use this if you want to shoot for longer than 4-5 minutes at a time and sit down and, you know, have a conversation like we are. More than likely, if I were to be making a video of this type, I don't really script a lot of things. So I would usually run over 5 minutes and I'm sitting here talking to you, and I just like to have the dialogue. If you're doing that, this camera is not 4K capable. If you buy this and you're in a situation where you want to shoot longer footage, then this camera is just a really expensive HD camera that can shoot 1920 by 1080p, and that's available in other cameras that are at a much cheaper price point. Speaking of short bursts, I'm gonna be honest with you. This high frame rate mode is cool and all. I mean, you're excited. You get this camera, you're like, oh, I can shoot slow motion. That's cool. You turn the high frame rate mode. You look at the options you have. You go through the weird process it makes you go through to shoot. It's not that weird. You just press this button here for standby, and then you press record. And you can't press that button or this button unless you press this one first. It's a little bit weird. But anyway, you're so excited to shoot this super slow motion shots, and you hit record, and you hear that. That's the official sound of disappointment. You can shoot at a really high frame rate at 960 frames per second, or you can shoot at 480 frames per second, or you can shoot at 260 frames per second. I think that's right, or 240 frames per second, something like that. Just know that if you shoot 960 frames per second, the quality of the footage kind of diminishes at that point. It's not really usable in my opinion, but if you shoot at the lower frame rates, they're slow enough. They're slow enough to get super clean, good looking slow motion shots that you can't even tell that there's a difference in quality or a slight difference in quality. Now, in the high frame rate mode, it does have 2 different modes that you can choose from. It has a few different modes you can choose from. You can choose the frame rate. You can also choose the trigger to start before or start after recording. And you can also choose to have a time priority or a quality priority when you're recording high frame rate, which of course you're gonna choose the quality. This makes it a shorter film time. So you really only get a couple of seconds of recording in high frame rate mode, which is, I mean, it's understandable because it's a pocket camera, but there are some instances where you do want to record a little bit longer slow motion shots. I mean, if you did want to do that, you really can't with this camera. That's my understanding of how this high frame rate works, and it doesn't seem like you get much recording time. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you guys know a little bit more about that. Let me know in the comments below if you do know if you can get a longer film time with this high frame rate. But that was my understanding of it, and that kind of brings me to my next point of how this camera doesn't have good intuition. It's not really intuitive. It's not user friendly. You know, like, you can't just pick this thing up and expect to go. It has a ton of menus and ton of options, which is good because you kind of get that DSLR feel where you can do so much with this small little camera. But the advantage that the DSLR has is that it's able to have more buttons. It has more surface area, so they can put more buttons everywhere, and it has more space inside, so they can put more little gadgets in there as well. But this thing pretty much does all that through menus, so you get a ton of menu screens that you have to navigate through. Sorry for all the noise back there, but there's one thing I wanted to mention is that this camera does not have a touchscreen, and that kind of makes it a little less intuitive because, you know, on the G7X you can just press to focus. On here you have to press a button to focus, and you have to use this button to switch through the menu options, whereas on like a G7X you can just use the touchscreen, go through your menu options, and it just feels a little bit better that way. But it's something you do have to get used to on this camera, and that might be a make or break thing for you. So the wording and the position of the menus is really important to me because the average user needs to be able to pick it up and use it and know what mode they're shooting in. Now it seems like they took that into account because they added this little C button at the bottom that allows you to press it, and at any time in the menu options you're selecting something you don't know what it is, you can press that button and it will give you a short little explanation. It's kind of like an in-camera guide. It's like an in-camera user guide. You just click that button and it will tell you with a short explanation of what that menu option is. Is this a great camera? Yes, it is a great camera. Would I buy it again? Probably not. Now, I would probably if I was in your position and you're thinking about buying this camera, what I would do is I would look at some other cameras, look at what this does and look at what the other cameras do, especially DSLRs. Look at some DSLRs that may not be that much more expensive than this camera here. They can do all those things without overheating. But if you need a pocket camera to do all the things that this does, then yes, this is the way to go. So a couple questions that you guys had about this camera. These came from Instagram, so if you don't follow me on Instagram, go ahead and do that. You can get some notifications of when I am posting something or what's due next on my channel. And you can go ahead and ask the question, and I can include your question or try to answer that question in my videos. So that way we're kind of, talking to each other about this thing, ahead of time. All right? I just want to make sure I touch on some things that you guys want to hear about these cameras in these videos. And my link to Instagram is in the description box below. This question comes from Julie. It's not specific to this camera, but she asked what cameras do we use for our daily vlogs. Basically, we use all of the cameras. I mean, we use Sony Rx100 when we feel like it. We use the G7X when we feel like it. And we also use the 70D, but mostly it's the G7X and the 70D. The images from both of those kind of look pretty similar, so we just matched or pair those two together. But for a long time we were shooting with the Rx100. Is the Sony better than the G7X? That's a good question. I think that this is definitely better in some areas than the G7X. It just depends on who you ask. I mean, people look at the quality of the G7X and they see the poppiness, they see the crispy look of it because of the contrast and all that stuff, and it just looks like a better image straight out of the camera than this one does here. The footage that you get is very similar. I mean, you just get a flatter image from this one. So my answer to that is it all depends on what you want, and it all depends on what you're trying to get out of your camera. If you want high frame rate, if you want to be able to shoot super slow motion, I would say the Rx100 is the better camera. Also, you can shoot in 4K. The G7X is just more intuitive. It has great quality image, and it's just, maybe I should do a full length video of just comparing the two. But it really just depends on what you're doing and what you're trying to do it for. JR Wig asked pros and cons versus DSLR camera. So the Sony Rx100, pros and cons versus a DSLR. Size, I mean, the size of this is a pro, but it's also a con as well, because you can't fit as many buttons, as many options, ready to use options on the camera body itself like you can on a DSLR. A DSLR has enough surface area that you can have all these buttons. You can readily click them or switch modes or switch white balance and things like that you can't do on something like this as quickly. DSLRs are much bigger, but you can also put on different lenses as well. So they have the different pros and cons. It all depends on what you're looking for. If you feel like dragging around a bulky camera, I know my wife would rather have a pocket camera than have a 70D lugging around and vlogging with. But it all depends on what you're using it for and what you can really deal with as a filmmaker. Is this camera costly? Heck yes, it's costly. It doesn't matter. You can get the older versions, but it just depends on if you want the high quality camera, a nice sensor, a nice lens, be able to shoot 4K, high frame rate, you're gonna spend some money to get there. So that's pretty much it for the Sony Rx100. Let me know what you guys think about the Sony Rx100 in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.